She was told to wait outside by a flight attendant who thought she didn't belong in first class. The simple woman in the gray sweater didn't argue. She simply nodded and stepped aside. What the airline staff didn't know, by tomorrow she would bring their entire company to its knees. Emma Caldwell preferred to remain invisible. At 38, she'd built a reputation as one of the shrewdest investment strategists in Boston. But you'd never know it by looking at her. Her shoulder-length dark hair framed a face that wore minimal makeup. Her wardrobe consisted primarily of functional, comfortable pieces, like the gray cashmere sweater she wore today. Miss Caldwell, the board meeting has been confirmed for tomorrow. All major shareholders will be present. Her assistant's voice came through her earpiece as Emma navigated Logan International Airport. Thank you, Richard. And the report on customer satisfaction, Emma asked, her voice low as she maneuvered through the crowd. Just received the preliminary data. It's concerning. Emma nodded to herself. This was precisely why she'd decided to take this flight. Atlantic Star Airlines had been hemorrhaging customers for months. As the third largest individual shareholder, she'd suggested implementing a mystery passenger program to evaluate the airline's service firsthand. The board had agreed, but she'd taken it a step further, deciding to be the first mystery passenger herself. Keep me posted on any changes, she said, ending the call. At the premium check-in counter, Emma presented her first-class ticket and ID. The attendant barely glanced at them, her fingers tapping against the keyboard with bored efficiency. Reason for travel, ma'am? The attendant asked mechanically. Business, Emma replied, maintaining her deliberately nondescript persona. The attendant handed back her documents. Gate 27B, boarding begins in 40 minutes. Emma thanked her and headed toward security. Her carry-on contained only essentials, a change of clothes, her laptop, and a small notebook where she jotted observations. Today's flight would determine whether she'd push for a complete overhaul of Atlantic Star's customer service protocols. After clearing security, Emma walked past luxury boutiques toward the first-class lounge. Atlantic Star's lounge had once been the jewel of the airline, but according to reports, service had declined sharply in the past year. She wanted to experience it firsthand. At the lounge entrance, she presented her boarding pass to a young man with a pleasant smile. Welcome to the Atlantic Star Premier Lounge, Miss Caldwell. Please enjoy your stay. Inside, Emma observed the half-empty space. A server approached high-profile-looking guests promptly while ignoring others. She made mental notes. Selective service, understaffing, inconsistent attention to guests. An hour later, Emma headed to her gate. The flight to New York was routine for her, a quick 90-minute trip she'd made countless times. As she approached Gate 27B, she noticed the gate agent, a blonde woman in a crisp white uniform, speaking sharply to an elderly couple. I'm sorry, but we've already begun boarding premium passengers. You'll need to wait. Emma frowned, noting the way the agent's tone shifted when a well-dressed businessman approached immediately after. Right this way, sir. Have a wonderful flight. When it was her turn, Emma presented her boarding pass. The gate agent, whose name tag read Heather Blake, barely glanced at it before her eyes swept critically over Emma's simple attire. First class? Heather asked, skepticism dripping from her words. Yes, Emma replied simply. Heather's perfectly shaped eyebrows raised slightly. Are you sure you're at the correct gate? This is the first-class boarding line. Emma remained calm. I'm aware. My boarding pass indicates seat 2A, first class. Heather's eyes narrowed as she scanned the boarding pass again, her manicured finger tapping against the counter. This, Emma noted, would be the first real test of Atlantic Star's customer service. How they treated passengers who didn't fit their preconceived notion of first class. Ma'am, could you step aside, please? We need to verify something with your ticket. Heather's voice had shifted from skeptical to authoritative. Emma noticed several passengers watching the interaction with curious eyes. She remained calm but firm. Is there a problem with my boarding pass? Just step aside, please. Heather gestured impatiently toward a waiting area. We have priority passengers who need to board. Emma watched as Heather waved through 3 more passengers, all in business attire, without checking their boarding passes as thoroughly as she had Emma's. The discrimination wasn't subtle. After several minutes of being ignored, Emma approached the counter again. Excuse me, I believe we've waited long enough. My flight is boarding now. Heather barely looked up. Ma'am, as I said, we're verifying your ticket. First class is for premium customers. Her eyes flicked dismissively over Emma's simple gray sweater and comfortable travel pants. Perhaps there's been a mix-up with your booking. There's no mix-up, Emma replied evenly. Heather sighed dramatically, then picked up a phone. She spoke in hushed tones, occasionally glancing at Emma with thinly veiled disdain. Finally, she hung up and approached. Miss Caldwell, we're going to need to rebook you. It appears there's been an overbooking in first class. Emma's eyebrows raised slightly. Interesting, since I checked in online and selected my seat this morning. These things happen, Heather replied with artificial sweetness. We can accommodate you in economy on this flight, or rebook you in first class on a later flight. By now, a small audience had gathered, other passengers watching the exchange with varying degrees of interest. Emma noticed an older gentleman frowning at the gate agent's behavior, while a young woman was surreptitiously recording the interaction on her phone. May I see your supervisor? Emma asked quietly. Heather's smile tightened. My supervisor is currently unavailable. I'm authorized to handle this situation. She lowered her voice to a harsh whisper. Look, we both know this ticket was probably a mistake. Someone like you doesn't normally fly first class with us. The comment hung in the air between them. Emma felt a flicker of anger, but maintained her composure. Someone like me? You know what I mean. Heather's eyes darted to Emma's simple attire again. Our first-class experience is curated for a certain clientele. We need to ensure all our premium passengers feel comfortable. A flight attendant, the same blonde woman from the image, approached from the jet bridge. Heather, is everything okay here? She asked, her eyes immediately assessing Emma with the same dismissive glance. Just a ticketing issue, Vanessa, Heather replied. Miss Caldwell here thinks she should be in first class. Vanessa's perfectly painted lips curved into a cold smile. I see. She turned to Emma, her hand moving to grasp Emma's arm firmly but politely. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to wait outside the boarding area while we sort this out. Wait outside, Emma repeated, noting the touch on her arm, a power move designed to physically assert authority. Yes, Vanessa said firmly. The other first-class passengers are boarding now, and we can't have disruptions. Emma glanced around the gate area. Every pair of eyes seemed fixed on their exchange. She could fight this, demand her rightful seat, escalate to management, create a scene. But that wouldn't serve her ultimate purpose. Instead, she took a calculated step back, disengaging from Vanessa's grip. I understand, she said quietly. Confusion flashed briefly across both women's faces. They'd clearly expected resistance. I'll wait, Emma continued, her voice steady. But I would like both your employee numbers, please. The women exchanged glances. Vanessa's smile became brittle. That won't be necessary. We're simply following company protocol. Nevertheless, Emma insisted, pulling out her phone, I'd like to document who I spoke with today. Reluctantly, they provided their information, which Emma carefully noted in her phone. She then walked to a nearby row of seats, sat down, and watched as the last of the first-class passengers boarded. 10 minutes later, Heather approached with a revised boarding pass. We've found you a seat in economy, row 23, middle seat. It's the best we can do. Emma accepted the boarding pass without argument. As she joined the line for general boarding, she pulled out her phone and sent a brief text to Richard. Change of plans. Move tomorrow's meeting to 9 a.m. sharp. And contact legal. I want them there. As she boarded the plane, Emma nodded politely to Vanessa, who stood at the cabin door. The flight attendant's smug expression faltered slightly at Emma's calm demeanor. Walking past the first-class cabin she'd been denied, Emma made a mental note of every detail. This wasn't a setback. This was ammunition. The cramped economy seat was far from comfortable, but Emma wasn't focused on the lack of legroom. Her mind was already crafting a strategy. She pulled out her notebook, ignoring the passenger next to her, who struggled to avoid encroaching on her limited space. Emma wrote a single question at the top of the page. How systemic is the problem? She underlined it twice. The flight attendant who had blocked her from first class, Vanessa, walked past, deliberately avoiding eye contact. Emma observed how Vanessa's demeanor changed dramatically when interacting with different passengers. Warm and attentive with well-dressed business travelers, perfunctory with everyone else. When the drink service came around, Emma pressed the call button to request a glass of water. 5 minutes passed. 10. Finally, she pressed it again. "You need to be patient," Vanessa said when she finally responded, not bothering to hide her irritation. "We're serving a full flight." Emma noticed the woman across the aisle had received her requested beverage almost immediately after asking. Another data point. She opened her laptop, careful to angle the screen away from curious eyes and access to secure server. Here lay the real reason Atlantic Star's board had agreed to her mystery passenger program. The airline's customer satisfaction scores had plummeted over the past 8 months, correlating directly with the tenure of their new head of customer experience, Diana Winters. Emma pulled up the file on Winters. An impressive resume on paper, luxury retail background, promises to elevate the airline's premium offerings. But the data told a different story. Complaints up 47%, particularly regarding discriminatory treatment and inconsistent service. Emma's fingers flew over the keyboard as she documented today's experience in detailed, dispassionate language. She attached her original boarding pass confirmation, the timestamp of when she was denied boarding, and the employee numbers she'd collected. A notification popped up on her screen, an email from Richard with an attachment. Emma opened it to find compiled statements from 17 former Atlantic Star employees, all highlighting troubling patterns, directives to prioritize passengers who looked the part, informal profiling systems, and explicit instructions to upsell or rebook passengers who didn't fit the airline's premium image. She'd been building this case for months, piece by piece. Today's experience wasn't just an isolated incident. It was confirmation of a pattern she'd suspected since reviewing the declining satisfaction metrics. Emma opened another secure file, Atlantic Star's shareholder agreement. As she reviewed the ethics clause her legal team had insisted on when she'd made her initial investment 3 years ago, a subtle smile formed on her lips. Section 7.3 was explicit. Documented evidence of systematic discriminatory practices constituted grounds for emergency board action, including removal of executives. She drafted 3 emails. 1, to her legal team, prepare injunctive relief documents based on Section 7.3. Have them ready for tomorrow. 2, to her media contacts, holding statement ready by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Will advise on distribution. 3, to the Atlantic Star Board Secretary, per shareholder agreement. Section 11.2. I formally request the floor for the first 20 minutes of tomorrow's meeting. This is non-negotiable. As the plane began its descent into New York, Emma closed her laptop and leaned back in her cramped seat. She caught Vanessa staring at her from the front of the cabin, that same dismissive look on her face. Emma smiled politely in return, which seemed to unsettle the flight attendant. Little did Vanessa know that in less than 24 hours, Emma would completely transform Atlantic Star Airlines. Starting with the customer service department, the plane touched down with a gentle thud. As passengers around her rushed to retrieve their belongings, Emma remained seated, making one final note in her journal. They never asked why I was flying to New York. If they had, they might have realized their mistake. I was heading to their company headquarters all along. The sleek offices of Caldwell Investments occupied the 35th floor of a Manhattan high-rise. By 7 a.m., Emma had already been there for an hour, her simple gray sweater replaced by a tailored charcoal suit that transformed her appearance entirely. The legal team is assembled in conference room 3, Richard said, placing a coffee on her desk. And I've compiled everything you requested. Emma nodded. The Atlantic Star Board members? All confirmed for 9 a.m., none declined once they heard you called the meeting. Richard hesitated. There's something else? That video taken by the passenger at the gate yesterday, it's gaining traction online. Emma raised an eyebrow. Show me. Richard turned his tablet toward her. The shaky footage showed Emma's interaction with Heather and Vanessa, the moment when she was told to wait outside, clearly captured. The caption read, Atlantic Star Airlines refusing first-class passenger because she doesn't look the part? Classism in the skies. 40,000 views since last night, Richard noted. Emma studied the video. Interesting timing. Any response from Atlantic Star PR? Standard boilerplate about investigating the matter. They don't realize it's you. They will soon enough, Emma replied, rising from her desk. Let's meet with legal. In conference room 3, Emma stood before her assembled team, 4 attorneys, 2 data analysts, and her chief financial officer. On the display screen behind her was a comprehensive presentation that they had worked through the night to prepare. Atlantic Star's discriminatory practices aren't just morally reprehensible, Emma explained, gesturing to a chart. They're financially disastrous. Customer retention down 23%. Premium bookings sliding. Their stock has dropped 17% in 6 months. And you experienced it firsthand, Jane Wilson, her chief counsel, noted. Emma nodded. And I have it documented, but one incident isn't enough. Show me what else we have. The data analyst, Trevor, took over. We've identified 116 complaints in the past quarter that follow the same pattern. Passengers being denied service, downgraded, or mistreated based on appearance or perceived status. We've verified and compiled 43 of them with solid documentation. The real smoking gun, added Sarah, the second analyst, is this internal memo from Diana Winters to the cabin crew supervisors. She displayed an email on screen, highlighting a specific paragraph. Remember our new premium strategy. First class is our flagship product and must maintain a certain aesthetic. Use your discretion with passengers who might diminish the experience for our high-value customers. Emma felt a cold anger reading those words. This violates not just our ethics clause, but potentially federal aviation regulations on discriminatory practices. Jane, what's our strongest approach? Jane opened her folder. We have 3 options. 1, standard shareholder action requesting board investigation. Slow, potentially gets buried. 2, public press campaign using your experience as leverage. Effective, but messy. 3, invoke Section 7.3, which allows emergency board action with documented ethics violations. Option 3, Emma decided. We'll need the votes. You already have 22% personally, her CFO noted. We've identified at least 31% more who will likely back you if presented with this evidence. Emma nodded. That's enough to force immediate action. She turned to Richard. Is everything ready for my demonstration? Richard smiled slightly. Exactly as you specified. Your clothes from yesterday are prepared, and we have a complete reproduction of your boarding experience. Emma checked her watch. 8:15 a.m. Time to get ready. The board won't know what hit them. The boardroom of Atlantic Star Airlines exuded corporate luxury. All mahogany tables and leather chairs, with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Manhattan's skyline. By 8:55 a.m., all 13 board members had arrived, along with the executive team, including CEO Harrison Wells and Head of Customer Experience Diana Winters. They chatted among themselves, curiosity evident in their expressions. Emergency board meetings were rare, especially ones called by a typically silent investor. At precisely 9 a.m., the door opened. Conversations halted as Emma walked in, not in corporate attire, but wearing the exact same gray sweater and casual pants from yesterday's flight. Several board members failed to hide their surprise. CEO Wells recovered first, extending his hand. Ms. Caldwell, this is unexpected. We typically see your representative at these meetings. Emma shook his hand firmly. Today required my personal attention. Diana Winters leaned toward the man beside her, whispering something that made him smirk. Emma noted this without comment. I understand you've requested the first 20 minutes, the board chairman said. The floor is yours. Emma walked to the front of the room, her manner calm and deliberate. Thank you, Chairman Davis. Before I begin my formal presentation, I have a question for Ms. Winters. Diana straightened, surprise flashing across her face. Yes? Emma's voice remained conversational. Your new premium strategy, does it include instructing staff to discriminate against passengers based on appearance? The room went silent. Diana's smile froze. I don't know what you're talking about. That's interesting, Emma replied, picking up a remote. Because yesterday, I experienced your strategy firsthand. She pressed a button, and the video from the gate appeared on the massive screen behind her, showing Emma being denied boarding, told to wait outside, and physically blocked from the first-class line. As the footage played, Emma watched the board members' expressions shift from confusion to growing unease. Now, Emma said as the video ended, let me show you what happens to customers who don't fit your premium aesthetic. The boardroom remained deathly silent as Emma pressed another button on the remote. The screen split to show multiple videos, all displaying similar incidents of passengers being treated dismissively, denied service, or removed from premium areas. 43 documented cases in the last quarter alone, Emma stated, her voice steady, all following the directive from Ms. Winters to maintain a certain aesthetic in your premium cabins. Diana Winters shifted uncomfortably. These are isolated incidents. You can't possibly... This is the internal memo you sent to cabin supervisors, Emma interrupted, displaying the email on screen. And here are the testimonials from 17 former employees confirming these practices were not only encouraged, but required. CEO Harrison Wells's face had paled considerably. Ms. Caldwell, I assure you, if these practices exist, they aren't company policy. They exist, Emma replied firmly. I've experienced them myself. And according to Section 7.3 of our shareholder agreement, documented evidence of systematic discriminatory practices constitutes grounds for emergency board action. The company's legal counsel, a stern-faced woman at the end of the table, leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing, Ms. Caldwell? Emma gestured to her team waiting outside the glass doors. My legal counsel has prepared the necessary documents. I'm invoking my rights as a major shareholder to call for immediate removal of those responsible and implementation of comprehensive anti-discrimination measures. Diana Winters stood abruptly. This is absurd. You can't possibly have the authority. I own 22% of this airline, Ms. Winters, Emma stated calmly, and I've already secured the support of shareholders representing an additional 34%. The room erupted in murmurs. Harrison Wells looked stricken. Furthermore, Emma continued, the viral video of my experience has already accumulated over 200,000 views since last night. Your stock dropped 4% in pre-market trading this morning. By the time the markets close today, the damage to your brand could be irreparable unless decisive action is taken. Chairman Davis cleared his throat. What sort of action are you suggesting specifically? Emma opened a folder, sliding documents across the polished table. Immediate removal of Diana Winters, a public statement acknowledging these discriminatory practices and outlining concrete steps to eliminate them. Creation of an independent customer advocacy board with real authority, and a compensation fund for affected passengers. She paused, letting the gravity of the moment sink in. Either this happens today, or I take my evidence public and initiate a class action lawsuit that will make yesterday's incident look like a minor inconvenience. Harrison Wells loosened his tie, his eyes darting between Emma and the other board members. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. No, Emma said firmly. No more hiding. This airline has systematically discriminated against passengers based on appearance and perceived status. It ends today. The board chairman studied the documents before him, then looked up at the incriminating evidence still displayed on screen. I believe Ms. Caldwell has presented compelling evidence that warrants immediate action. He turned to the airline's legal counsel. Your assessment? The lawyer's face remained impassive, but her response was telling. The shareholder agreement is clear. With the evidence presented and the voting shares Ms. Caldwell has consolidated, we have little choice. Emma stepped back, watching as the realization settled over the room. The power dynamic had completely reversed. The board members who had initially viewed her with mild curiosity now regarded her with a mixture of respect and apprehension. Diana Winters, sensing the shifting tide, attempted one last defense. This is one person's experience being blown out of proportion. No, Ms. Winters, Emma cut her off. This is accountability, something your leadership has been sorely lacking. She gestured to Richard, who opened the boardroom doors. Jane Wilson and two other attorneys entered, carrying additional documentation. Now, Emma said, taking a seat at the head of the table, shall we begin restructuring this airline? 1 week later, Emma stood in the Atlantic Star departure lounge at Logan International Airport. The changes were already visible. New signage outlining passenger rights, diverse staff engaging with all travelers equally, and a noticeably different atmosphere. On the television mounted above the seating area, a financial news channel displayed Atlantic Star's recovering stock price, alongside headlines about the company's dramatic leadership shakeup and revolutionary customer-first initiatives. Your flight is ready for boarding, Ms. Caldwell, a gate agent announced, approaching with respect, rather than the condescension Emma had experienced just days earlier. As Emma walked toward the gate, she spotted a familiar face, Vanessa, the flight attendant who had blocked her from first class. No longer working at the gate, she was now collecting boarding passes in economy class, her expression subdued. Their eyes met briefly. Recognition dawned on Vanessa's face, followed by shock and embarrassment. Emma simply nodded and continued walking. Boarding the plane, Emma was greeted by a new head flight attendant who showed her to her first-class seat with genuine professionalism. "We've implemented comprehensive changes to our service protocols," the airline's new customer experience director had informed her yesterday. "Every employee is undergoing retraining." Emma settled into her seat, reflecting on the past week's events. She hadn't set out to destroy Atlantic Star Airlines, merely to transform it. Sometimes, true power wasn't about flaunting wealth or status, but knowing exactly when and how to use it. The gray sweater remained in her closet, a reminder that respect should never depend on appearances. What would you have done in Emma's situation? Would you have revealed your identity immediately, or followed her strategic approach? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this tale of hidden power and strategic justice, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us appearances can be deceiving and respect should be universal. Are you watching from somewhere in America where you've witnessed similar discrimination? Share your experience. Your story matters. Until next time, remember, true power isn't what you display, but what you strategically reveal at the right moment.